they'll be in a tough game the week before Georgia. I mean, they by no means can they just skate into Georgia. They're going to the SEC title game, but if their hopes are still making an a college football playoff, a 3-loss team is totally out of it. I mean, it's not even in the discussion. But there's no way I believe that they will leave the SEC champ out of the college football playoff. I think that there'd be a riot in the sport if you left the SEC champ that has 2 losses, but defeated Georgia to get there, which right now we can all agree, if there's one that's in today, no argument, already has the ticket punched, it's Georgia. They're in the playoff. No matter if they lose in the title game, barring some catastrophe versus Georgia Tech and South Carolina. But, I'm going to imagine they would be okay getting to Atlanta undefeated. And if they do, and LSU's able to pull it off, where they beat Georgia a lot like Alabama did last season in this same game, Georgia is still in, and LSU's the SEC champ with wins over Georgia, Alabama, Florida on the road, SEC wins. There's no way they leave them out. The Pac-12 continues to cannibalize themselves. The 3 best teams, or 3 of the best teams, with an Ohio State and Michigan being the other one, are coming out of the SEC. And that's just the way of the football world now. I mean, I think people have come to accept that, the best football in college is played in the Southeast, right? Do we have to get the analytics of draft day numbers, of people that are playing in the NFL, of guys that are coming out of this league and playing on Sundays, the amount of titles that the league has won consistently? There's too much evidence that points to the fact that the best football collegiately is in the Southeastern Conference. So for the first time, possibly, getting 3 teams in, it would only make sense that it came out of the SEC. And if the scenario plays out where Georgia gets to the title game undefeated and loses to LSU, those 2 teams, to me, are in. And now you've got a 1-loss Tennessee team waiting to find out, so what happens now? We beat LSU. Who's better than Tennessee at that point? I'll listen to Ohio State and Michigan. One of you are in. Whoever loses the game, you're out.
You're out. One loss, don't care.
Sorry. But really.
It's the Joker and Batman here. Break this
because
stick.
Here's the deal, man. Because here's the deal. Behind closed doors, this is a television show.
Yeah. Boo.
This is nothing but an ad sales meeting. Mm-hmm. How can we move the meter? How can we get the most interest?
Georgia versus Tennessee. First round.
Hot damn.
LSU versus Ohio State. First round.
Because then you have to get, if you really want to go into the weeds, and I wanted to ask you if you think anything that happens tonight bears anything out for what happens in the playoff. Because I don't think any rankings will be final from today that go into, LSU could play themselves into this thing.
3 more rankings.
We got 3 more things. We get to meet Boo 3 more times.
Oh, that's the guy's name? Boo.
Who's left for TCU?
TCU lost Saturday.
No,
they won.
They won. They beat
rolled,
Texas.
Bro.
Yeah.
They rolled.
But they got Baylor up next.
Come on, Dave.
3-point spread. Another one that people are
really all
about.
It takes is a close game on TCU. They almost even have to lose.
They'll piss down their leg.
Because again, it's a television show, and behind closed doors, people are saying TCU, nobody cares about them. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Oh, Fort Worth ain't a market.
Yeah, right. We're not going to get anybody outside of Dallas to watch TCU. Nobody's going to care. We're going to match them up against Ohio State in round 1, and they're going to get just demolished.
Nobody cares about your sweater vest.
It's if it plays out where LSU wins the league and they've only got 2 losses, there's no way they're keeping them out.
Who do
I'm
you
telling
think?
you, man. There's no way there's no way you can keep the league champ of the Southeastern Conference out of the playoff.
Well, yeah, I don't understand how they could. Why is that even a question?
Because LSU
at that
has 2
point?
losses,
Yeah.
and so there's other teams like whether it be a TCU, whether it be an Ohio
Oregon.
State, Michigan, Oregon, USC that all have 1 loss,
Okay.
and they'll be able to represent. Somebody's gonna have to represent the Pac-12, but they keep, like Jordy said, they keep feasting on themselves to where they
Cannibalism.
just beat each other up to the point where I've seen enough of this. Like you want to see, feels like you want to see an SEC team because whenever you look at who has the most appearances since they started the playoff. Conference with the most, SEC with 10. Conference with most game wins, SEC with 14. Conference with most championships, SEC with 5. Like, there's a reason that you put
Don't overthink
SEC teams in. It's because they're the best conference. And down the line, it'd be funny to see how they go 1, 2, 3, and 4 with. Yeah, I got the clips up there with because you don't want to see Georgia play LSU, LSU win, and then them rank them such that they have to play again in the first round.
Yeah.
So they'll finagle the system to put somebody 1 and somebody 3 and somebody 2 and somebody 4. So you don't see the same game back to back. And that's when you get into this is just a TV show. Like it's not actually who's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
It's what makes the best product. You don't want to watch LSU Georgia back to back weeks. So they'll put somebody 1 and somebody 4, so somebody 2 and somebody 3. It might not be right, but they're going to do it to set it up that you get to see different games as opposed to seeing the same 2 teams play essentially a rematch right off the bat.
Let
Makes
them
sense.
rematch in the championship.
I mean, the Pac-12, I think, is going to, as Crane said yesterday, just go Jeffrey Dahmer
That was awesome.
and, cannibalize themselves. I
gonna
mean,
watch some
UCLA and
movies.
USC play one another. UCLA's play themselves out of it. If UCLA beats USC, they're out of the discussion, which is probably going to happen. Stephen Miller, Jordy, do you think a 1-loss Michigan or Ohio State gets in even though they don't win their conference?
Well, what if they lose the conference championship?
Yeah,
Like,
who would they take on in the conference championship game? Would that be Iowa?
Iowa, probably
is.
like Wisconsin.
Yeah. Ohio State's got to line up against Iowa. They scored 8 points a game.
I think they do. I think that Michigan and Ohio State have been consistently good enough, kind of bell to bell, that if they can get past whoever wins that game and gets to the conference championship, it will almost feel like Georgia. Like they're in.
Right.
Don't overthink this.
The Michigan Ohio State game is almost a de facto play in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you win that game, I think you're in.